Welcome to Pondering Passages. I am Kurt Austin. My good friend David Mullins is going to be here very soon, and we're going to be talking about a new study that we have going, and that is studying the book of Genesis. And so I cannot wait to talk about this in more detail, what this is going to look like moving forward for the days, weeks, months to come, maybe years to come, and how this is going to play out in our own passages that we're studying and in our lives. So come back, join us for that conversation, and we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about it. We'll see you then. All right, welcome to a brand new adventure that we are doing together, Dave and I. If you have followed Pondering Passages, the Psalms, then you know what we've been doing for a long time. We're going to try and do something a little bit different. Dave, what is it that we're doing now? I've forgotten already.
Wait, we're not doing Psalm 33 today?
Yeah, we did that last week.
We did 32 last week. We're supposed to do 33, right? Isn't that?
I did it without you.
Oh, well, that explains a lot. That explains all the angry emails. I had
All
no
right,
idea
so
what we were talking about.
we're jumping into Genesis, right?
Yes, we're going back to the beginning, and
Nice.
yeah, back to where it all started. And so I guess we're calling this Pondering Genesis, but really what we're going to be doing is we're going to be exploring Genesis. And
Why? Why Genesis? Why not Matthew, Mark, Luke, or
why
John?
not? There are several reasons. One is that Genesis, especially chapters 1 through 11, is kind of the introduction to the Torah and the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. And Genesis as a whole is an introduction to like everything. And the first 11 chapters actually set up, I call them design patterns that continue to repeat throughout Scripture and actually repeat in our lives in our world today. And so it's very, I think, helpful in understanding the prophets, the Psalms, the Proverbs. There were some Psalms that we did that I think both you and I were like, what in the world is that talking about? But if you understand, even the first 11 chapters of Genesis, a lot of those actually begin to become clear, and it's
Well,
helpful.
even some of the Psalms that we did it was, oh, look, this is the creation story. This is a
Yes.
reference
Yeah.
to, this is a reference to.
Proverbs chapter 1. If you
Yep.
look through there, and so it makes references back. Paul in the New Testament and some of the other New Testament writers talk about Adam and Eve. I mean, this is a foundation.
Mhm.
And another reason why is because I will say over the past, what's it been, maybe 4 months, I've been introduced to a way to read Genesis that I have not known about.
Mhm.
And here's been my issue with Genesis, Kurt. I would read some of Genesis and I would come to some part that just did not make a lick of sense.
Hmm.
And if someone asked me about it, what it means, I'm not really sure. But as I'm reading it, I would come across those parts and I say, huh, okay, and just move on.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking I can't understand this.
Yeah.
It's not dealing with any categories that I have, and I didn't know how to find those categories. Well, recently, within the past 150 years, they've discovered a lot of documents from the ancient Near East where, the Bible was created in the ancient Near East. And these other documents have given insights into how people that lived in that culture would have viewed things and what was important to them. And when you begin to understand how they read and understood like scripture and other writings, uh, it actually gives clarity,
Hmm.
not just to Genesis, but other parts of the Bible as well. But we'll talk more about that, I think, in episode 2. This is episode 1, or is this episode 0?
This is yeah, this is our beta version.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
well, now, so I was thinking, Dave, one of the questions that all of our viewers are probably wondering, is in the Pondering Psalms, we would read a psalm every day for a week, and then we would talk about that. How will this Genesis conversation be different?
I'm not sure. I still find it helpful to read a passage or a chapter several times. One of the things that probably needs to happen in Genesis is we do slow down. We
Okay.
start asking questions. We notice repetitions because repetition is very important. We notice not just repetitions, but what would make sense because sometimes there's a repetition, but something's missing,
Mm, yeah,
And so it's
that's
like,
true.
okay, it would make more sense if this was here, but it's not here. So is the author trying to tell me something
Mhm.
about this? Are
Okay.
they trying to point something out? And we'll get into that as we move forward. Uh, but I have found it extremely extremely helpful, and I have been diving down into I wouldn't call it newer scholarship, but it is a different way of reading Genesis that I was never taught, that I am finding it extremely helpful. And it is actually I guess I would say a more conservative reading,
Mm,
uh, a more um, I don't want to say accurate, but it tries to get closer to the heart of what the early writers were trying to communicate.
okay. I think the other thing that's probably important to point out is that in Pondering Psalms, you and I never talked about the psalm before we
That's
sat
right.
down to
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
In this situation, this is not so much just ramblings of two old guys or one older guy and one younger guy in this case, but
Happy
in
birthday,
fact,
by the way. You look great for 73.
thank you.
Yeah.
But in fact, this is more of a studied discussion.
Yes.
That's probably a safe way to say it.
Yeah.
Still, I mean,
Yeah.
trying to find resources that speak
Mhm.
to the passages, trying to find, other scholars to help guide the conversation, and so if you are watching this and you're thinking, "Oh, I'd love to jump on board with this study," then feel free. I've never been a big fan of study Bibles that have lots of little footnotes underneath it. I feel like it kind of detracts. But in fact, if you have a resource that you want to read, that you want to bring along, and you can kind of compare, you can say, well, I never thought about that way. You can look at
Yeah.
that. And maybe something we say is a kind of spurs you into a deeper thought about a passage that you'd never given any thought to before.
Right.
Maybe it'll line up with what we're talking about. Maybe it won't.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like every book out there agrees that this is the way that looks, but
Yeah.
there's a
And
new way of seeing it that I think is gonna be exciting to hear about.
yes, I believe so too. I think it will be helpful in really all, as you continue to read scripture. I think there might be some connections that get made where before there was like no connection at all. It's like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing
Mhm,
there.
mhm.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that we tried in Psalms to do a weekly show. We tried as
We did
best we
for
could.
like
Again,
2.5 years.
it was not our full-time job, and so we were
Yeah.
just trying to stay faithful to that. There may be gaps in this as we study more, as we think about what it is we wanna show. So don't go, "Well, where's my episode 2?" Because we
Right.
don't know where episode 2 is gonna be. But, I think that's the other thing I'm really excited about in this, is that this will be a learning opportunity for both of us as we look at this. I'm
Exactly.
really which the Psalms was as well, but it was a we well, this is a good question. Is this formational or informational study?
Uh, I find it formational. I think it there's information here. It's a different way of reading, but the thing is, it's okay. I know what I wanted to say earlier. Not a more accurate reading. It's a closer reading. It's a
Okay.
closer reading of Genesis. And it's helping me because I don't read and just say, "Huh, well, I don't know," and just move on.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'll say that the small group I'm with, we've been looking at some of this, and there have been some really cool connection points that people are making that their whole years of being part of a church, being a Christian, uh, that they never saw it in this way. And we'll get to that. And that was in Genesis 1. That was just in Genesis
Yeah.
1.
So if somebody's watching this, what do you suggest they do in preparation for future study? Is there something they should be doing?
I would say, yeah, begin reading and read slowly and notice repetitions and notice what maybe is doesn't seem to fit there, or things that might not make any sense to you, and just kind of put all that kind of in the back of your mind.
Okay. Well, I am incredibly excited about
Yeah.
this. I really am. For those of you who are wondering why we're making this shift from Psalm with only just slightly a year left of doing doing those episodes, is because we just got frozen when we kept thinking about Psalm 119. We couldn't figure out what we wanted to do, so we just said we're out. We're not doing this anymore.
No,
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 in truth, I think
we're-
we were not trying to be religious about this. We were trying
right.
to just let God lead us in what He wants for us, and we may come back to the Psalms and finish that up someday. But for now, this is kind of what we're doing today.
Yeah.
And so we're glad that you're a part of this, and we look forward to the upcoming insights and learnings that's going to come along. And in the meantime, if you have any questions for us, feel free to put it in the chat down below. Send us an email and let us know, and we will work those in. I mean, this will
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a great format to answer some
It
questions
really
that
will
you
be.
may have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in the meantime, we'll start reading Genesis, and we will see you the next time that we're here. We'll talk to you soon.